This is Michael Clara coming to you from Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm going to create a new blog about my experience with UTA and what happened recently. And this particular entry is going to be titled The Termination Letter. And basically what happened was, and I'll come back to what this letter is, but today is September 22nd, 2017. And this is was my boss a couple years ago, Christopher Chesnut, who is still at Utah Transit Authority. And this particular entry is going to be about the part that this termination letter played in this 3-day trial that just got completed. And my attorney, Austin Egan, did an outstanding job at unmasking the administrative evil that's going on at the Utah Transit Authority. We see a lot of stories about the leadership and the problems that were going on the board level and with upper management, but this is a story about upper and middle management and how deceitful they'll be and the lengths that they'll go through to hide their own wrongdoing. And there's a couple stories that have been written on this. One of this is official claims UTA fired him for warning it violated safety rules. That's from a January 9th, 2016 article. And then a more recent story just came out last week by Christina Flores at Channel 2 News, former UTA employee ready to take on former bosses at trial. And so you can get more detail by going to those. In this case, I want to go to the termination letter and just spend a couple of minutes in this entry talking about that. And here's from the Tribune story back in January of 2016. It says that the letter officially notifying him says he failed to return to work for 5 days after a scheduled 2-week vacation. But Clara said he ended up working the first week of that vacation, so he extended it by another week and told his supervisor about those plans. And then I'm quoted saying, if they're worried that I had just disappeared, why didn't they call me sooner instead of just firing me? The other part of this story to understand, if you don't know the details, is about improvements that were going on along 200 South in Salt Lake City during the month of October of 2015. And that's where I got and disagreed and would not approve a number of the bus stops because they were not ADA compliant and they were unsafe. And so that's what they were upset with me about, and then fabricated this termination story the following month. So this is about the 200 South in that Tribune article. It just says also, he says that he ran into trouble in October. I won't read that because I just said all that, but you can go back and read that. So here's my attorney, Austin Egan of Stravos Law, who did an outstanding job in uncovering and unmasking a lot of the problems that are going on in middle management at UTA. And this is what he wrote about this case. He says, for 20 years, Mr. Clara provided UTA with exceptional service. By UTA's own admission, Clara performed his duties as a service plan deployment specialist effectively, and he was a valuable member of UTA's team. As the general election of 2015 approached, voters in Salt Lake County faced a ballot option, which is Proposition 1, which provided them with the opportunity to approve or reject an increase of county sales tax. And then he goes on, and basically he just spells out here that Mr. Clara inspected bus stops along 200 South Corridor and found a variety of hazards, safety conditions, including obstructions to the bus load, and he lists those. And then he says Mr. Clara promptly reported those safety hazards. In response, UTA began deviating from its bus stop amenities installation policy and bypassed Mr. Clara entirely, disregarding his work orders and installing amenities. UTA has confirmed that an employee in its capital development department, and they did have to admit that this happened, that they were wrong and that I should not have been bypassed. And then, but what ends up happening is in October of 2015, this last part occurred when we're talking about the 200 South bus stop improvements. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, I go on vacation and I got fired. So following this issue in late October of 2015, I went on vacation the first week of November. And while I was on vacation, I get this phone call from Chris Chesnut, who's my boss, and telling me that my employment's terminated. And the following week, I got this letter in the mail. My attorney points out that further evidence of pretext is revealed through the inconsistencies and false allegations in Chesnut's termination letter to Clara, dated November 20th, UTA's Exhibit M. In this letter, Chesnut claimed that he tried contacting Clara numerous times, both by phone and email, from November 11th through 13th, with no response from Clara. Chesnut acknowledged that his allegation was false and that he was out of town from November 9 through 13 of 2015. In the same letter, Chesnut also alleges that Clara did not respond to phone calls and emails sent from November 18th to 20th, but UTA failed to produce any documents confirming those communications occurred, which, they didn't occur. That's why they don't have anything to show. And this is just the termination letter, and up on top there, I tried contacting you numerous times, is what he said. And then that corresponds to that first circle on top, and then the next circle in red, that's the next set of dates that he claims that he tried to reach out to me and that I didn't respond. So as a consequence, I got terminated. According to him, that was his reasoning. But I wanted to go back and show another issue that my attorney was able to bring to light. Back in, so this happened in November of 2015, and then I filed for unemployment. I was denied unemployment benefits, and then I appealed it, and then was denied that and had to appeal it again, and finally was granted those benefits. But during the first hearing in February 8th, 2016, the UTA offered this exhibit number 37. And this is where he's saying, because what happened is when I went on my 2-week vacation, I ended up working the first week and then extended it another week. But then Chris Chesnut claimed that he had no idea that I was working that first week of my vacation. He says, and then he puts that here in this January 8th email. And then in the hearing itself, here he says that he wasn't aware. And then in the hearing of the DWS hearing back in February 8th of 2016, this is a transcript, part of the transcript, where I'm asking him questions and saying, but, you got emails and we communicated with each other with emails. The problem is at the time, they wouldn't give me a copy of the emails. I had to do a grammar request. And so I'm just asking him, I said, I'm aware that I did that, and he's denying it. And then the judge says, okay, do you recall? And prior to this, he's saying, well, no, I don't have those copies in front of me and I didn't get them. And then he just says, I said, well, do you remember doing it? And then he says, no, the first part, he says, I did not receive any of those emails. And then what happens is my attorney was able to, this is how my attorney describes this as he starts looking into it. He says, further chipping away at Mr. Chesnut's credibility are his statements made to Ms. Glenn in an email dated January 8, 2016, wherein Chesnut claimed that he was not aware Clara was performing any work between October 27th and November 1st. However, in his deposition, Chesnut acknowledged that Clara was performing work in that time period, that his statement to Ms. Glenn was incorrect, and that he apologized for that. And what he's referring to is then in June of this year, he was able to depose Chris Chesnut and bring before him a lot of the evidence that we were able to gather during the discovery phase of this trial. And this is the email that I got in December 20th, 2016, and it shows exactly what I was saying back in February of that year in the DWS hearing. This is an email from Chris Chesnut to me on October 29th, 2015. That's significant because that was a time period that he claimed I was not at work and that he had no knowledge of me being at work. And then his response is to apologize for lying, actually, is what he's saying. So, and then this is just a deposition that my attorney asked him the question, well, then it's safe to say that your statement to Ms. Glenn in Exhibit 46, you were not aware that Michael was conducting any work from October 27th to November 1st is incorrect. Is it not? Is the question that my attorney asked him during the deposition. And he says, yes, it is. I apologize for that. So my point in just doing this short videos is just show this is really an idea of how this whole trial went, that a number of the UTA people in management sat there and had to admit that they were not being honest when it came down to my termination. And so in a follow-up video, I'll talk about Matt Sybil and some of the dishonesty that he put forward in this, and he's UTA's government relations specialist. There's another employee that works in their capital development department that at the time this was going on talked about strangling me and he was going to unleash on me. And then later on in January of 2016, this is an email that we discovered from Jerry Benson and his part in covering this up. So at any rate, I want to keep these short. And so that's what happened this last week. And this is the kind of stuff that just kept coming up over and over about the deceitfulness that's rampant at the Utah Transit Authority. Thank you.